originally I wanted to make a separate video for each play-in game, but then I kind of realized that you'd probably be watching the Washington Wizards versus the Boston Celtics after the Charlotte Hornets took on the Indiana Pacers. And honestly, if you watched the Charlotte Hornets face off against the Indiana Pacers, well, you know that there isn't really necessarily much to say. So what's going on, guys? Your boy Mike here. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, post-game analysis is officially back. It's probably one of my favorite things to do throughout the NBA year. Real quick, guys, before we get to the content, do me a favor and slap that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It helps this channel a ton. And if you want, you could determine whether you want to subscribe to me later on at the conclusion of this video. I also have a podcast with two other awesome NBA YouTubers, Mike Korzemba and Get Like Coop, and we're giving away a PS5 or Xbox Series X to any subscriber that turns on our notifications on that channel. And now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I wanted to begin this video by briefly touching on what we saw in the Indiana Pacers Charlotte Hornets game in the earlier part of the day. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was going into this game and when I was watching this game, a part of me thought that the Charlotte Hornets were probably gonna win this. As a matter of fact, I feel like most of us thought that the Charlotte Hornets were going to win this, especially Charles Barkley.
Oh, I need one of those. The Charlotte Hornets are going to win.
We found out that Karis LeVert wasn't going to play, so we didn't really expect anyone to step up for the Indiana Pacers. At least I didn't. And boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. The Pacers had players like Doug McDermott and O'Shea Brissett step up for them big in this game. And it was a situation where the strength in numbers and just really good coaching paid off against a team that is fairly young and is missing its veteran leader in Gordon Hayward. And I know what you guys are going to say. Yeah, Bismack Biyombo was a part of a pretty deep playoff run a couple years ago, but you guys know what I mean here. For the Charlotte Hornets, I tweeted this out while we were watching the game, and it's the mere fact that the Charlotte Hornets' appearance in the play-in tournament, I think, is going to be really good for everyone's development. It's really strange because this is the second time we're getting a play-in tournament, but it's like the first time that it's an official thing that we indoctrinated into the NBA. So the playoff atmosphere and playoff intensity isn't necessarily there, but the importance of the game is there, and I think that's really good for the development of players like LaMelo Ball, Devontae Graham, Malik Monk, Miles Bridges, etc., etc. What really is disappointing to me is the fact that Terry Rozier, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges all had horrific plus minuses. I mean, LaMelo Ball went minus 35, Terry Rozier went minus 32, Cody Zeller went minus 20. It just didn't really look good. LaMelo shot 4 of 14 throughout this game. It wasn't really his best game, but at the same time, he's only 19 years old, and I think he's only going to get better from here. Regardless, he had a tremendous rookie year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to build upon that next year, because I feel like if Gordon Hayward was available and the Charlotte Hornets were fully healthy, we may have expected a different result. Now let's talk about the Washington Wizards versus the Boston Celtics, man. And this is probably one of the most backward games that I think I've ever watched, because these two teams are essentially playing for a playoff berth. That is true, but the winner of this game gets to go ahead and face off against the Brooklyn Nets in their first round matchup. So it's kind of bittersweet. Would you rather lose a game, face off against the Indiana Pacers in a second play-in, and then hopefully beat them, and then face off against the Philadelphia 76ers as an 8th seed, or would you rather win a game immediately and then face off against the Brooklyn Nets? And that's something that I pondered going into this game, because I thought it was a very legitimate thing to ask ourselves, especially considering the fact that we saw multiple Western Conference teams pretty much tank the final games of their season just so they could avoid potentially facing the Los Angeles Lakers should the Lakers have made it in as a 6th seed, which they didn't at the end. Now, unlike the first game of the day, if one of these two teams were to lose this game, then the loser would face off against the winner of the earlier game, in this case being the Indiana Pacers, for a chance to stay in the playoff picture, although they would be the 8th seed by default and they would go up against the Philadelphia 76ers. And the storyline of this entire game has to be the fact that just like the Indiana Pacers that were losing probably one of their best players in Caris LeVert, the Boston Celtics were without their franchise cornerstone player, Jaylen Brown. And to be honest, I didn't completely write them off coming into this game, but I did ponder how far they would be able to make it into the playoffs without Jaylen Brown. But I never would have expected Jayson Tatum to come out and perform the way he did. This man came out and gave us quite possibly one of the greatest basketball performances that we could have ever expected out of him, dropping 50 points and scoring 41 points in just 3 quarters. Now, this was more than enough to will the Boston Celtics into a win. And the question that was at least on my mind was, we saw absolute dominance from Russell Westbrook in the regular season. But what we saw from Russell Westbrook in the regular season, breaking that triple-double record, is something that I'm not really expecting to see again in my entire life. Maybe I will, but for the most part, it was something extremely special. But the one knock that has always been on Russell Westbrook is his regular season success rarely ever translates into postseason success. It's almost as if his game was tailor-made for the regular season and not so much for the postseason. And as we were watching this game, I couldn't help but ponder whether or not Russell Westbrook was dealing with an injury. And there were signs there that were showing me that this man might be playing with an injury, and that could be why he hasn't really been playing up to form. He wasn't out there dropping as many dimes as he typically does. He wasn't nearly as efficient from the field as he typically was. And unfortunately for the Washington Wizards, he didn't really have Bradley Beal supporting him, even though he wasn't playing his best game. Both Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook didn't play up to their standards and up to our standards, frankly. And I think this is where the play-in gets very interesting. Now we have Russell Westbrook and the Washington Wizards. They have one more chance to potentially sneak into the NBA playoffs. I would have loved to see them win this game and then go up against the Brooklyn Nets that featured 2 of Russell Westbrook's former teammates, Kevin Durant during his time with the OKC Thunder, and then James Harden during the earlier parts of his career on the OKC Thunder, and then last year on the Houston Rockets, and then if you really want to count it, Jeff Green as well. But now we have to see whether or not Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal could figure out a way to beat the Indiana Pacers to at least have an opportunity against the Philadelphia 76ers. I hope Russell Westbrook's okay. I hope he comes out this next game and dominates. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? How far do you think the Boston Celtics are going to go? How far do you think the Washington Wizards are going to go? Do you even expect the Wizards to win this next game? Or do you think that they're going to lose to the Indiana Pacers? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.